Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mediation and Beyond YouTube channel, where we have really interesting conversation with really interesting people. Today, I'm super excited to have Lisa Younger all the way from Australia. She's a human resource specialist with over a decade of experience in various industries across Australia. Originally from Canada, Lisa commenced her working career as a Montessori school teacher, where she discovered her love of people and learning. She began her career in HR, human resource career, in 2006 in Australia, having completed her postgraduate qualifications in 2010, and working in various corporate roles ever since. She's now the managing director of Evolving Doors in Australia. Her focus is on helping her clients to attract and retain high performers through building cultures of productivity and delegated leadership. Lisa specializes, and this is one of the reasons I wanted her on today, Lisa specializes in empowering leaders to manage their staff more effectively by promoting engaging, collaborative, and empathetic work practices, needed now more than ever, Lisa. Lisa's vision is to help business leaders purposefully create work environments that recognize and reward contribution and create fulfillment through shared achievement. Lisa, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it. It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. As I said to you earlier, I just really wanted you on for the accent because I could listen to that. I could listen all day to that. But one of the reasons, and we spoke a little bit earlier, I wanted to talk with you. I wanted to, so that you can let people know a little bit about you, how you got from Canada to Australia, you know, the why perhaps, and what led you from the teaching into HR, which really we all know is another form of teaching. But so just to start there, how'd you transition?
Okay, so yeah, I was possibly 5 years into a teaching career, and I had an opportunity to travel around Australia. So I decided to put the job on hold and travel. And it was in that experience of traveling that I probably found myself. Mm-hmm. I was in my sort of mid-20s at the time, and I felt very whole and complete and so content in Australia. It was that experience when you meet a soulmate, where everything aligns and you just feel absolutely connected. Well, that's how I felt about Australia. Felt so at home and so at peace. And I went home and I told my family that I wasn't going to live in Canada anymore. And I didn't know where I was going to go, but I knew that this isn't right. This isn't the place for me. So fate had it that my now husband turned up in Canada a couple of years later and whisked me back to Australia. So it all happened as it was meant to. But when I arrived, I had an opportunity to work. I did a few odd jobs in the beginning. I did real estate and worked in a marketing sort of company. Mm-hmm. But eventually I got offered a job with a consultancy, an HR recruitment consultancy. And that's when I really decided this is what I want to do. I'd love to be a consultant. I actually declared it to the universe. One day I'm going to be an HR consultant. But of course I didn't have the experience at the time. So I went on to work for a global engineering firm, built up my skills through them and got my qualifications. And whilst I enjoyed the experience, I did find that the corporate environment was slightly limiting, and perhaps it was the industry that I was in, but I felt that I wasn't able to make the difference that I wanted to. So fast forward 2 children later, I wanted to create something different for myself, and I wanted to really focus on the area of performance engagement, because that, in my experience, was the thing that was limited businesses the most. Was a manager who had been promoted up the ranks because they were technically great at their job, but they would get there and they would have no skills on how to manage people. They didn't know how to communicate effectively. They didn't know how to nurture and grow someone the way that, ideally people like, right, or respond well to. And that's really what so I always found as an HR manager, people were coming in, mainly the managers coming in and going, how do I deal with so-and-so? They're underperforming. What do I say? What do I do?
Yep.
And it's always been a fairly natural, I guess, innate skill of mine. So that's really the area of focus for my business, is really imparting the skill and knowledge to business leaders of how to engage with their staff in a more meaningful way, to empower them and to create that accountability that's required when you're given a position and you need to achieve some certain outcomes for the business. So I don't it's not an entirely warm and fuzzy approach, but it certainly is grounded in professional conduct, respect, empathy, and creating a really nurturing, supportive environment for people.
So would a business manager, so to speak, come to you and say, hey, I'm having trouble with my staff, I'm not connecting, do they even know they're not connecting?
Well, there's probably two different types of leaders. There's the leader that is naturally skilled at it. They're good at communicating. They have great relationships with their staff, and they really want the best for them. So, that really is my ideal client. Sure. And the only time they would probably engage me is in a period of scaling quickly. They're a successful business, they're doing great, and suddenly they're like doubling their numbers, and they're just kind of in this period of needing some help.
Yeah.
And those types of clients really take on my feedback. They respond really well to my philosophy and my processes, and they engage well. The other type of client is the one that is having a lot of internal conflict. The performance is consistently across the board, maybe not where they feel it should be. And they get an experience of feeling a lot of disappointment around their staff's performance. And sometimes it could be just one person that isn't really the right fit for an organization. And then I might help them and support them of how to actually get that person to realize that they don't actually fit there, and they're probably better off in a different industry or doing something that is more aligned with who they are. But other times it's a case of actually the leader is the root cause of the issue, and they have things in the way that are limiting their ability to really see the employee, and have much empathy for the position that they're in. So, and that can be for a myriad of reasons. Mm-hmm. And I suppose that is one of the more challenging, for me, the more challenging aspects, because they might be really willing and wanting to adjust themselves, but there will be these barriers that will come up for them that make it quite difficult.
Then that would entail the manager, so to speak, to be reflective of self, to look at what they're bringing to the table, which, as we all know, some people can do that with ease. Some people can need that with a little hand holding, and then others just, like you're a deer in a headlight. They can't see themselves at all.
Correct, exactly. So it's those ones that it's probably difficult for me to make much difference. If there is an unwillingness to take the coaching and to hear, my advice, take on my advice, and follow the steps that I'm providing, then, like anything, right? If somebody wants to get fit, but they don't want to actually do the exercise,
yeah,
it's not going to work. So it's the same with managing people. So yeah, I'm looking at potentially developing some sort of a workshop or a training for those particular clients that do really want to engage with their staff in a more meaningful way, but really need to work on themselves a little bit first.
Do you notice if there's a difference between female and male managers? Like, do you send, it doesn't matter, it's really the individual, or do you find that women are more aware or more engaged in a process?
Well, to be honest with you, I have all male clients. So I actually do not have any female
Okay.
business owners that I've done sort of one-off projects for some
Sure.
female business leaders, but around this performance and engagement, I haven't had any. So it's interesting, and perhaps it is in the referrals that I
Sure.
get. I'm working with males, and then they refer their male
Yes.
colleagues. But I would say they would probably be more willing, possibly, or may find it a little bit easier to follow some of my approach. But I would say it would be the same. I think there would still be the same human limitations across both genders. So, but I can't concretely say, because I
Right.
haven't actually worked on this matter with a lot of women. So yeah.
But you wouldn't say, so, I've spoken with women in other countries, and, clearly in some of these other countries, women don't even have the role of being a lot of business owners, or,
Yes.
the country itself is still evolving. I wouldn't imagine that would be the case in Australia. I mean, I wouldn't imagine there's a huge disparity of male owned, female owned managers or even business owners, right?
No, there is a lot there. Yeah, there is a lot of business owners and business leaders. I've certainly worked with a lot of female managers.
Okay.
And I would say, particularly when I was in engineering, there was probably, they tended to manage a lot like the men, and not necessarily harnessing a lot of that female intuition and that maybe elevated skill and communication in some respects. But there often was a little bit of potentially micromanaging, where, not wanting to fail, not wanting the team to fail. So they end up doing a lot of the work, or over checking, and things like that, which again, I would love to work with more women around how to do that a little bit more effectively, because micromanagement is never going to get you the best result
No,
from your
at work or with your children. Like,
Absolutely.
I think sometimes
Absolutely.
we as women just kind of do our motherly thing, and let me just do that. Let me just jump in and take care of that, or do it my way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
So I know it's
absolutely.
done right, right? I mean, I think that's for a lot of women, can definitely relate to that. So that would be interesting to work. I would be interested in seeing the differences, like, right, especially from your vantage point about what women's needs are in terms of being managed, to improve their management skills, as opposed to men, because we bring different, sets to the table. So when I know you liked HR and you were, in that, but this business, Evolving Doors, right? Is this your business?
Yes. Yeah.
And so you're on your own, doing your own thing and trying to get out there. So you've had to create your own process and your own philosophy around doing things. And what if someone was listening to this that says, hey, I like this one. What would your philosophy be that they could have a takeaway from?
Okay. So, I believe that everybody wants to do their best at work. So performance issues are never because someone really doesn't care, or they don't want to do a good job.
Right.
I think it can eventually get to that point when someone is treated in a way that they're not comfortable with for a long period of time. They will disengage and then make a decision, probably, that they don't care.
Yep.
But initially, it doesn't ever start that way. So I believe that frequent and regular conversations are really fundamental to catch, moments where an employee starts to, just feel like their job isn't going well, or the motivation starts to decline. We all as human beings need to feel like we're moving forward,
Right.
that we're progressing, right? And when we experience a stagnation for a long period of time, that's when the motivation starts to decline. And that's when people will start to, oh, I might just call in sick today. Oh, I really can't be faced with another repeat of what I've been doing for the last 12 months. So, it's quite human nature for people to resign after 12 months because nothing's changed and they're bored.
Yep.
Or they start to sort of slack off a bit because they're not challenged. They are no longer challenged in what they're doing. So it's very important for a leader to be continuously offering development and growth and learning. And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to have a huge promotion every year.
Right.
But you do need to be working towards something. So, if a very junior person says to you, well, I want to be a manager, instead of saying, oh, well, that's not going to happen for years. You've got so much to learn. And rather say something along the lines of, wonderful, I'd love to help you get there. Now let's see what skills you need to develop and let's work on those. Right.
Yeah.
And it just little micro opportunities, it could be things like just having ringing a client back and confirming an appointment, like just starting to develop that. How do I speak to clients? How do I communicate to our customers in a professional manner? So giving them, entrusting them with little opportunities to develop themselves, and there is trust that's required. You need to be able to allow some failure and some, they're not going to do it perfect from the get-go, but that's how they learn. And it's just like as your analogy with parenting, right?
Yeah.
It's scary when you let go of your child's hand for the first time in public and trust that they're not going to run away or you're going to lose them or anything, right? But it's part of them learning, and you have to entrust that they will improve. And with your guidance and mentoring and support, they will develop a lot faster than if you try and make them drive it, which is what some employers do. They don't offer anything, and then once a year they speak to them and say, well, what would you like to do? What do you, and then they go, oh, well, you want to do a course. Okay, well, how about you go and organize it and figure out when it's going to fit in and do it at home or after work, because I don't want to have to pay for the time. And so there's all these, it's not easy, and the employee never does it because they feel guilty. They feel like they're doing something that is above and beyond what the business is capable of supporting.
Right.
And I hear it all the time, like employees just don't actually do the training and development they need because the business hasn't really made it easy for them to do it. So it's not just about the external training, it's internal learning. It's those conversations that add value when someone does make a mistake, saying to them, it's okay. It's absolutely fine. How could you have done it differently? How do you think that could have been managed a little bit better? And allow the employee to work through and problem solve and learn from the mistake, and that's really what it's about. It's not about fixing or solving the problem for the employee. It's about engaging them into a conversation of critically thinking about how they can do better. In every day, in every learning opportunity that they're given.
Yeah, I think people really want to add value to whatever they're working on or wherever they are working. They just want to bring value. They want to feel purpose, right?
Absolutely.
And words are so powerful. You could say the same thing two different ways, and one is going to be more impactful, which is what you're alluding to, than another way. I want to ask you, do you find it effective for people in leadership positions to be aware of what's going on in people's lives on a personal level? Does
I
that make
do.
somebody a more effective leader, or is that an area where they need to remove themselves?
I don't think so. I do feel there's an element of there needs to be some boundaries in place when you're just as there would be sort of with a child, right? A parent-child relationship. You don't disclose everything to your child because it's not appropriate, and same thing. So you don't want to disclose a lot about every ins and outs of personal things going on for you and download onto your employee.
Right.
But I think engaging and finding out how things are going for them personally
Yes.
is a good thing, because if they're going through a crisis at home, a marriage breakdown or something,
Yes.
you need to know about that in order to support them effectively at work. So personal situations can really impact performance at work. So it is helpful to be across, when things aren't going great, and celebrate the good things. If they buy a new house or they're having a baby,
Yes.
you want to share in the joyous moments as well. So again, it's all about that connection, right? One of the reasons why I think sometimes cultures can disintegrate is everybody's operating from a very silo position. They're not connected to the greater purpose, like you said, purpose before, and it's really an important thing for a business to establish a vision and a purpose, so that everyone is connected, and then they will collaborate more effectively and not get stuck in this what about me sort of mentality that's very egocentric, and often it just doesn't work as well when you've got all these silo thinking people that are mainly focused on their own wants and needs. When you can really get all of that out of the way and work from a position of what do we need to do to achieve our goals, it will fundamentally just work better, and you'll find people will get along and communicate better, and just work more effectively as a team. So
as you're speaking, I'm like thinking, well, it's how a family works, right?
Exactly.
You just can't be in your own little world because everybody else in the unit won't do well. Like it's that team effort. And so when you were talking, that's what came to mind, was like that family. And I'm like, oh, that's exactly right. So if it fails from the top down.
Yeah. And I often use parenting as such a good analogy for leadership, because it is really the same, whether you're dealing with someone that's, 50 or 5. We're all human beings, and we all have the same wants and needs. So it often putting it in those simplistic terms of examples of what you would do as a parent is quite helpful in terms of leadership, and how you need the mindset. You need to love and care for your staff in the same way that you do for your children. You're with them for a huge amount of your day and your week. And if you don't like them, and you don't value them, and you don't care about their long-term career and happiness, it isn't really going to work. You're not going to have the same outcomes. And at the end of the day, if you want to run a successful business, your people are the most important asset. And the more focused and tuned in they are to your purpose and what you want to achieve, the more profit you'll make. And
Absolutely.
like your business will be much better off for it. So
now let me ask you, if now with Zoom, we have our great technology that everybody's on board with. Are you able to work globally? So if someone's watching this and they say they're in the States and they're like, wow, I really liked that interview. I really like her energy. I'd like to work with her, but she's in Australia. Like, does it matter?
No, absolutely not. I'd love that. And I do actually have grand plans to expand within certainly Canada, because that's where I'm from. So I
Right.
would love the opportunity to spend time, part of my year over there.
Yep.
But I can certainly do almost everything on Zoom. So there isn't really, the only time I really need to go into a client's office is if they need me to support them with an employee and they want me to actually attend a meeting.
Yep.
But even in saying that, there's a possibility that that could be done on Zoom to some level. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah, so is highly possible, yes.
Well, that's a real benefit, really, for the work you're doing, and businesses struggling and trying to regroup after COVID and the whole bit. Like, it's really nice to be able to have this technology as a way for you to support businesses, really, for the most part, all over, without actually having to step foot in a door, right? And so that's a real advantage. That's a real advantage to what you're doing. So how would people find you?
So they can have a look on my website, which
Okay.
is evolvingdoors.com.au. Certainly we can throw up that
Yeah, I'll throw that up.
onto,
And
yeah,
then do you
on
have,
the,
and then they can contact form there to find you and get in touch with you?
absolutely, yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Lise. I really have enjoyed talking with you, learning about what you're doing, learning about like your philosophy, because with everything kind of coming back up and out, and I think businesses are not only regrouping in their physical spaces, but with everything going on globally, like regrouping mentally and repurposing themselves in a different way. And they really do need to have everybody on board, single-minded to the mission of and purpose of the company, and
Yeah.
helping support people get there. And I think I like what I hear you saying about how you are doing the work you're doing. And so anybody watching, please contact Lisa Younger at evolvingdoors.com.au. I think is that right?
Absolutely, yeah. And I would love some female clients. So
There
I
you
am
go.
so passionate about empowering women to be awesome leaders. So if there are any women out there that want to do things in the ideal, creating the supportive, nurturing workplaces that,
Yeah.
that would be.
Do you give consults, Lisa? Like, if someone can get,
Absolutely.
okay, so that's good to know
Yeah.
too. So reach out, ladies, to Lisa for a consult and see if she's a good fit for what your needs are. But thank you so much, Lisa. I know I'm going to see you
Thanks,
again, talk
Colleen.
with you again, but it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me. It's
All
been
right.
it's been a pleasure.
I'll
Thanks.
talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.
Great. Bye.